I, as High Representative for Foreign and Security Policy, we are interested in the measures taken by member states and then, of course, the Commission's foreign policy. So we have a dual function. We've got external policy and security and defense, which aren't the same, even though one follows on from the other very often. And the war in Ukraine has highlighted the importance of the common defense and security policy. So it's been a wake-up call for Europe, a geopolitical wake-up call. And as Chancellor Scholz said a few days after the invasion, this has been, and I'm going to mangle this probably in German, this has been a Scheitenwind. So this hasn't just been for Germany, but it's been for the whole of Europe, a wake-up call before a new reality for us, which was war. And it is something that wasn't on our intellectual horizon because we had dropped our guard. And what proves that is the fact that our defense stockpiles were very low and our defense capabilities were low as well. And our capacity to react wasn't what it should have been. So this has really sounded the alarm bells because it ushers us into a new world, because everything has become a geopolitical debate, and the European Union has responded in a way which is up to you to judge and debate today. I hope that this debate will be used for this, in order to highlight what we've done. You're aware of what we've done. I'm not going to reiterate this. So the representatives of the peoples of Europe have to judge it. What else could we have done? What have we achieved? We have supported Ukraine militarily, economically, financially, diplomatically, as much as we have been able to. We have done a lot, but in my opinion, it hasn't been enough. I visited Ukraine recently with the President of the Commission and commissioners attending the Ukraine EU summit. And once again, I've seen people that are defending their freedom and independence, and leaders that are trying to deal with this dramatic situation by taking the European path. President Zelensky said it here only a few days ago. The situation in Ukraine at the moment is dramatic, but the Ukrainians are looking towards Europe, like so many other peoples like mine did so in the past, seeing it as a promising future. It may be that the road is long because the war is long, but we have to do everything we can to make sure that this promise becomes a reality. We want Ukraine to win the war, and then, I mean, it belongs to the European family anyway, but we hope that we'll find in Europe the future that it needs. Now, the reality on the ground is extremely worrying at the moment. More than 360,000 Russian soldiers are there, twice as many as before the war, and the Russian counter-offensive has begun, even if on a small scale. And for the first time, Ukraine doesn't have the advantage, the edge, by having more troops on the ground. So Ukraine has appealed to the EU member states and all those who help Ukraine. And yesterday we met in the Ramstein group with all those countries that coordinate military aid to Ukraine in order to take stock of the situation, to see what we've done, what we've given them as aid, and to also see what they need, more ammunition and more training for Ukrainian troops, in order to continue showing that we will not tire in our efforts to help Ukraine. Now, I will say that I like war as little as you do. I'm not a warmongering individual. I really do not like war. Of course, I prefer peace. as almost everyone. There's no point in reiterating this. But what we have to discuss is how to achieve peace. And to achieve peace, we have to continue supporting Ukraine militarily more than we have done so. And this is going to be one of my key messages. Now, to achieve peace, you need to win the war, and you can help Ukraine militarily and at the same time, in parallel, make all the diplomatic efforts necessary to ensure that peace comes as quickly as possible. These aren't alternatives. They're not contradictory. We have to do both things in parallel. We have to provide more support and step up our diplomatic efforts. And very soon I'll be able to plead this before the UN and ask the Secretary General to start, if he wants a mediation process. Everyone has failed up to now. Whoever has spoken to Putin has come back with the message that he wants to continue this war until he achieves his military goals. It would be ingenuous to ask for us to stop providing military assistance so that the war can last less time and that peace will come about. And I'm using the word ingenuous, not to use a stronger word now, because if we do that, the peace that we will achieve will be a Russian victory, and that will constitute a huge threat to our security. So what have we done? What has the Council done? I represent the Council here today. First of all, it has adopted an impressive package of sanctions, in fact 9, and the 10th is on the way. I'm sure that the President of the European Commission will refer to it. Now, the aim is to weaken the Russian economy, and we have achieved this. Many say that sanctions are inefficient and that they haven't dealt a blow to the Russian economy, and that, on the contrary, they have caused problems here in Europe. It's true that the Russian economy hasn't collapsed and that GDP growth isn't what had been forecast. And it's true that last year it got extraordinarily high revenues that came from oil and gas. But the situation is turning. Thanks to our sanctions and thanks to the oil price cap. If you look at the 3 key parameters of an economy, it's oil and gas revenue. And the Russian finance minister said a few days ago that in January they are 46% lower than last year. So, yes, they raked in a lot in 2022 because prices hiked, they soared. And we still depended on them, but we no longer depend on them. One of our great successes has been to reduce our extraordinary energy dependence on Russia to almost zero. Now, so 46% less January to January. And if you look at the public deficit, it's 40 times higher in January 2023 compared to January 2022, 14 times higher. So from 2 billion to 1.8 trillion. And if you look at the trade balance, you'll see that, yes, they had a huge surplus in 2022 because of a bumper wheat crop. But in January 2023, it's at a record low, at a historic low since 2007. So the sanctions are a low-action poison, a little bit like arsenic. It takes time to bring about effects, but they have had an impact. 45% of Russia's technological dependence is on Europe. Their plane and car plants have lost 80% of their capacity. Yes, the ruble is strong artificially, but the Russian economy is going to pay a very high price for this war. They have lost their main energy client, the Europeans, and they will not get them again. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be almost impossible to find an alternative client for Russian gas because China is too far, and oil is being sold at $40 a barrel. In other words, half the Brent crude oil price. India and China buy it at this lower price, and that is also because of the impact of our price cap, which is a huge political success because it has greatly slashed the Russian revenue, but not had a negative impact on the world market. So our measures are having an effect. It's happening slowly but surely, but they are undermining the industrial and energy bedrock of the Russian economy. Putin has already lost the energy battle in the same way as he is losing the war ethically and morally, and even militarily, even though Ukraine hasn't won yet. The second thing the Council did, apart from adopting these package of sanctions put forward by the High Representative and the President of the Commission working hand in hand. And let me thank the President of the Commission for her leadership and energy. We have also provided weapons to Ukraine. Yes, for the first time, the EU hasn't used resources from its budget, but has used resources from the member states in order to arm a country at war. And if you put the European peace facility amount together with what member states have done bilaterally, we're talking about a total of 12 billion euro, and the total amount of assistance is 60 billion. No one has done more than Europe to help Ukraine in financial and economic terms. And our military aid might be less than the US, but it is not a negligible amount. Yesterday at Ramstein, I said something which I would like to repeat here. Not only do we have to continue the assistance we provide, but we've got to step it up. And I'd like to put forward a plea to those countries that have modern and efficient battle tanks and that are just gathering dust in their depots and aren't being used, to give them to Ukraine and to provide them to Ukraine as quickly as possible. Because this spring and upcoming summer are going to be decisive. The war will be decided in the spring and summer, and we have spent too much time discussing whether we were going to provide the famous Leopard tanks while Russia was preparing its offensive. We've spent too much time discussing decisions that should have been taken before. We were fearful that getting involved in the war would be seen as pseudo-belligerence, but we said that we would provide battle tanks, and the Third World War hasn't broken out. Yes, the tanks aren't there, and it's going to take time for them to get there, but time is crucial, and time is measured in lives lost. So it's extremely important to focus on the European Peace Facility and to coordinate the work done by the member states and to ask for more and more aid to be provided more quickly. This is the key message I want to put across this morning. But let me reiterate the idea that this military assistance is not contradictory to seeking peace diplomatically. It doesn't fly in the face of that. One can go in parallel with the other. I don't understand those who say that to negotiate we've got to stop providing military assistance to Ukraine. On the contrary, both have to be done together. This isn't a debate between doves and hawks. This is based on realism, knowing the reality on the ground and what we have to and must do. And this is also an alarm bell. Europe has to understand that we need a higher defense capability than we have. Our defense industry has to be stronger. The ability of our armies to deal with this kind of situation has to be greater, because we've seen that it's fallen short of what was necessary. This war is going to be long. And we've got to tackle this based on the conviction that a war of attrition is a logistical battle. It's a battle of logistics. It's a battle of information. Because if you you look at those who are in Sahel, we're talking about the same groups in Ukraine, the Wagner group. They're both in the Sahel and in Ukraine. So there's the issue of the minerals and geopolitics, and we need to face the situation geopolitically. This is also the job that you have to do, ladies and gentlemen, honourable members. We've got to convince Europeans that we cannot flag, that war comes at a cost, but freedom we have to pay the price for freedom as well. And the price that we're paying is small compared to what others are paying. Putin cannot win this war. Ukraine has to win this war in order to build stable peace in Europe. Thank you.